What's going on, and welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk about the ever-changing digital social marketing landscape. This show is no different. Excited to get into a little mini pod edition, as we always do, talking about some of the top news stories. Obviously, introducing our newest producer, Kayla Simmons, on the program. So excited for you to jam with me on some topics here. So usually throughout the week, Kayla, we're kind of like sending each other articles, emails, Slacks. Like, ooh, this would be a good topic to bring up to the audience. So I know we've been gathering a handful of them. So why don't you hit me with some of these, and we'll discuss and educate the listeners on what's going on in all things social media, digital, sports, entertainment. You got it.
Yeah, sure thing. So let's just kick things off in TikTok land. So a lot of news around this ban is still going on. They are currently spending $1.3 billion to try and dodge the ban over in Europe. So talk to me some about that.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Because remember about 6 months ago, yourself, Alex, KDO, everybody remembers just how big this ban talk was. I was asked to go on CBS and talk about how big is this and how this is going to be, life changing. And we really haven't heard too much on the U.S. ban here in TikTok, but it's interesting to see that, TikTok is spending this $1.3 billion to build new data centers in Europe. So they're really battling multiple countries. They're battling multiple governments really to ensure that the data is secure, to ensure they have separate data centers in Europe. So that's super interesting that the European Union is really making sure TikTok has those individual data centers, 2 in Ireland, 1 in Denmark, by the end of 2024. So these data centers will allow TikTok to continue to operate in Europe. And it made me go back and look and say, what's the latest from the United States? Because we haven't really heard. It got super, super aggressive, and then it just kind of tailed off. And as we get into an election season, I think it'll be the last thing on people's mind, the last thing on the government's mind, especially when we're talking about indictments, and I won't get into all that. But, the last 6 months, is, looking into it, TikTok, the United States have been negotiating pretty regularly. This has obviously been a multi-year negotiation. But here are some of the latest as far as what's on the table here that the DOJ or the DOD, and I feel like I'm getting so much education in government politics with this TikTok ban. But the government will be able to examine TikTok U.S. facilities, records, equipment, and servers with no notice. They can block changes in any U.S. terms of service. They can veto the hiring of any executive involved in leading TikTok's U.S. data security org. They can order TikTok and ByteDance to pay for various audits, assessments. I mean, this is essentially the government's like, if you want to stay operating in our country, here's how this is going to work. And I don't think TikTok has too much leverage there. And they pretty much have to play ball. So, again, TikTok's U.S. audience alone, I don't know what the value on that would be if they sold it off to another company, but it would probably be a record sale. So TikTok wants to keep their U.S. audience. There's no doubt about that. Very interesting. But it sounds like they have been negotiating very hard for the last 6 months, and there is a draft agreement on the docket. And if they're paying $1.3 billion in Europe, I'm sure they're going to be paying even much more here in the United States.
No, I believe it. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But they've got some other things going on, which was not on my bingo card this year. They've partnered with Billboard to launch a TikTok Billboard top 50 chart.
This is interesting. So Dana Droppo, actually, she's the chief brand officer at Billboard. She's been on the program. She's been a great episode, even going back a couple of years ago. But this is very interesting. As we know, TikTok is really launching artists. TikTok is creating Billboard charts and creating artists, really jumping up that Billboard chart. So now I thought this was very interesting. The fact that TikTok and Billboard is going to have a top 50 chart. You can actually look at it inside your TikTok app by pressing a round icon on the bottom corner of the screen. And then there'll be a music charts button now. But as we know, I mean, these artists and these songs have gone viral, including catalog, right? Going back, looking at artists like Queen, or Michael Jackson or what have you, like some of these like little snippets of songs are having 11-year-olds go, oh, I like this new band called Queen. No, that band's been around for a long, long time. So yeah, listen, we already know that TikTok is affecting the Billboard charts. So now they partnered together to have a specific top 50 TikTok Billboard. I think it's smart. And keep in mind, record companies, and we've seen this in our line of work here at STN, they know how vital it is to get going on TikTok, especially for new artists and to really uncover old catalog music as well. TikTok is a huge part of music business right now. So very interesting to see them partner up on an official chart.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely going to change the game. Now we got to shift gears a little bit. It wouldn't be an STN episode if we didn't talk about a little sports.
Yep.
So
week one's in the books.
Right. YouTube, they partnered with NFL Sunday Ticket, as you may know.
Yep.
And this past Sunday, they just had their debut, which seemed to be a solid success for the most part.
Yeah, listen, this is after a 30-year partnership with DirecTV. We all know that so many people signed up for DirecTV just to get that Sunday Ticket if you were a sports fan. Looking at some of the comments on Twitter and some of the articles I was reading, it sounds like only a few minor things happen. Usually in these situations, there's buffering issues, there's blackouts, there's all these different things that they're kind of working through on the very first one. But the only two things I saw was they didn't put up the multi-view until about 10 to 15 minutes in the kickoff. And then you can't choose the 4 games that you want to customize if you want to watch in multi-view. But overall, really a huge success. I mean, the fact that YouTube had 0 streaming issues, no buffering, no glitches. As we all know, the Twitter trolls can get pretty aggressive if those things are happening, especially with the launch of a program. I was also concerned about the bars, right? Because all these bars for so long have been in that DirecTV mode and being able to switch to Wi-Fi and try to connect a YouTube TV device and to see if there was issues across restaurants and bars. But it sounds like those partners were all good as well. So good for YouTube, good for Sunday Ticket there. And you see with the MLS and Apple Plus, you're seeing with YouTube and Sunday Ticket and Amazon and Thursday Night Football. I mean, we knew it for years. We were talking about when is Meta, when is YouTube, when is Netflix going to start bidding on these different sports rights? And we are now in that era, no doubt about it.
Oh, for sure. It will definitely be interesting. And I'm sure it'll only get better with time for sure.
Yep.
So on Nielsen's front, as it relates to Thursday night football, they're actually not going to be forcing Amazon's data into the ad deals this year, which is definitely a change up.
Well, keep in mind, Nielsen is a third-party outfit that can ensure that when advertisers are paying a certain amount of money for views, they are that third-party audit to make sure that this is actually the amount of views that CBS or NBC or ABC got. What Amazon is saying is, hey, the way we count our data when it comes to streams and mobile devices and iPads and things like that, Nielsen isn't able to capture all these different devices, so therefore our numbers are much lower than what they should be. So therefore we've developed, and we want to develop with Nielsen, our own ad counter. The problem with that is it gets a little murky, right? Nielsen has never partnered with an official network because once you get in the business together and once money starts changing hands, in a sense, you really have a conflict of interest, right? So Amazon thinks that they had a 9% lift in viewers based on their impact data last year that wasn't accounted for. That obviously makes them have to do make goods or buybacks with their advertisers. It doesn't make them look as good with the NFL as far as that first year. They were really, historic in terms of that. I think that 25 to 34 demo that, obviously the NFL wants to get younger at. But it's going to be interesting as these new streamers start to get these rights and Nielsen has not caught up in terms of technology. You understand from Amazon's standpoint, like, hey, we want to get credit for every viewer, but you understand the conflict of interest if Nielsen is not an outside third-party auditor, if that makes sense. So, if you're an advertiser, you want to make sure if I'm paying for 8 million viewers, I want to make sure there's a third-party auditor out there that tells me I got 8 million viewers and not Amazon saying, oh, no, we promised it was 8 million. Actually, it was 9 million. That doesn't really make sense. And that's why for the history of media, the history of linear television, that was the case. And that was the trusted third party. So we'll see what happens here, but definitely interesting to see how Nielsen is going to continue to stay relevant / not conflict of interest and how these new streamers are going to get credit for the views they get.
Oh, for sure. We'll definitely keep monitoring. Now we got to bring it on home with Deion.
My boy Deion Sanders. What a story.
Taking it over in Colorado. Craziness.
We record this on September 15th. So by the time this comes out, hopefully he's 3-0 and he's beat Colorado State and the Cinderella story continues. But this is just such an incredible story. And I think what comes to mind for me, and I want to walk through like all the stuff that Deion Sanders has done if you haven't followed this story, if you're not a college football fan. But at the end of the day, this is the 1-11 football team. that honestly you can argue was the worst football team in the entire nation. They take a gamble. They hired Deion Sanders for about 5 years, $30 million. They couldn't really even afford him. They're like, we'll get him. He'll change our program. We'll figure the rest out later. And they are figuring the rest out later. They are, as they say, building the plane as you're flying it. But he comes out, upsets against TCU, upset against Nebraska. They're currently, as a recording of this program, ranked 16th in the country as they go into Colorado State. Shedeur Sanders is his son, star quarterback, Heisman candidate. Travis Hunter, as well, is playing both sides of the ball, another Heisman candidate. But Deion came in and brought in 86 brand new players. I mean, he completely cleaned house, and he brought all his players from Jackson State, a lot of people in the transfer portal. And when he took over Colorado, he addressed the team that was currently constructed at that time. Like, yo, you should probably hop in the portal because I'm bringing some luggage. He mentioned the luggage was Louis, and he did just that. He transformed the entire program, and not only the Heisman candidates 24 hours after the TCU upset. They got 6.3 million impressions on Twitter, 19,000 new followers, Instagram, 22 million impressions, 89,000 new followers just in the 24 hours after that TCU upset. So he's changing the game on the field. Obviously, the attendance, the social numbers, all that's happening. And the TV ratings. This is the Nebraska game was the #1 Pac-12 regular season game viewed ever. And it was the 10th most regular season college football game ever in the history of Fox. So this is, they call him prime time for a reason. This is now prime time. This is the #1 story in college football. And then I had Jason Samuelson. I know Kayla, KDO, you guys are big fans of our head analyst here at STN Digital. I said, Jason, tell me the impact that Deion Sanders has had on social media since he signed back in December, I think. He said, David, they had about 70,000 total followers across all Colorado athletics prior to signing Deion. They are now well over 750,000 followers across Colorado athletics. That is incredible. And I think the big thing, and Kayla, you know this because you've done so much research on this, the Messi impact when it comes to Apple TV, right, and the MLS, the Deion Sanders impact for Colorado State and college football. It's just interesting how valuable these personalities can be. Obviously, the Nick Sabans of the world and the Michael Jordans, they change their sports and they make a big impact. But it's going to be interesting as these different rights deals like the MLS comes about. Before these streamers, before these, even like the ESPNs of the world sign these big deals, do they need guarantees from the star players? Do they pay the star players for more cross promotion? Like Messi obviously is getting a piece of Apple TV. He's getting a piece of Adidas, and he's also using his Instagram to do those things. So it's going to be really interesting to see how media agreements change forever, really, because you see the impact. If I can get Deion Sanders to coach my team, look what happens. Right. I mean, you can literally, it might be $100 million annual decision based on attendance, ratings, people that are coming to your school. Don't forget boosters, all these things that start to come into your program. I would guarantee you, I'm not sure if they're a Nike school or I think they're Nike. But that becomes the #1 program in the nation that Nike wants to partner with. You can now renegotiate that deal. You can renegotiate your multimedia rights. Pac-12 is no longer in existence. I think Colorado went to the Big 12. But the Big 12, their value now has risen because everybody wants to see Deion Sanders, especially as they continue to win. So it's very interesting, like as we go forward in sports and in media, the power of some of these individual pieces that can take you from zero to hero is really fascinating. And shout out to Deion Sanders, who, if you think about it, he played Major League Baseball, he played in the NFL, he's a Hall of Famer. Now what he's doing as a coach, what he did at Jackson State for HBCUs, it's just like he may be one of the
quoted all around.
Yeah, he may go down as the best athlete, coach, like person in sports ever if he continues his trajectory. And who knows if he gets a deal in the next couple of years and goes to the SEC and takes over Florida State or LSU or one of these major programs and starts to bring a national championship around. That's it's going to be crazy. So shout out to Deion Sanders. It's been a great couple of weeks for college football. Obviously, the NFL kicking off and all that. So those are the stories. Those are the things that were top of mind. I think interesting for for our viewers to see. We'll stay on top of this whole TikTok ban. I'm sure it'll be 4 years from now. We'll get some resolution, but all in all, it sounds like those talks are progressing, and there won't be any issues other than is Montana still banned? I think so. But other than that, everything's looking good on that front. Although I think a lot of brands were scared there for a while. Is my TikTok going to be turned off? It's great always to look at big business with NFL and streaming and Nielsen and all those things that affect our respective businesses. And of course, good for Fox, man. Fox made a bet. They put those Colorado games on the first couple of weeks of their big noon kickoff and paid off in spades. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed a little roundup there, a little mini podcast. Thanks to Kayla for all the research and the support here on today's show. Thanks to KDO, of course, on the tech side. And we appreciate you for listening. So make sure to stay tuned, stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you soon right here on the Business of Social podcast. My name is David Brickley. It's all been powered by STN Digital.